marketing has lost sight of what the primary job is, which is to be the voice of the customer internally. And because they're not connected to the customer anymore, they have lost their seat at the table. So I would say that's the biggest challenge right now, is just getting that seat back at the table.
Welcome to the DesignRush Podcast. I'm your host, Kia Johnson. Today's guest is Stacey Danheiser, COO of Impressa AI, founder of Shake Marketing, and a leading voice in strategic marketing leadership. With 14 years in Fortune 500 companies and more than a decade advising B2B organizations, Stacey helps marketers shift from tactical executors to strategic influencers. In episode 90 of the DesignRush podcast, Stacey reveals why so many marketers are shut out of strategy and how to win back a seat at the leadership table by mastering customer insights, internal alignment, and executive credibility. If you're responsible for driving growth and want marketing to lead, not lag, this conversation is essential. Watch the episode on YouTube, listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Got a story worth sharing? Email us at spotlight@designrush.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more executive insights. I'm so excited to have you here with us in studio, I have to say, and on the show, because, you've built such a fascinating career. You've shaped marketing strategies for global brands. You empower women entrepreneurs, and now you are pioneering AI-driven solutions for leaders. Now, what initially sparked your passion for reshaping the way businesses approach leadership and innovation?
Yes, well, my first part of my career, I spent 14 years working in various Fortune 500 companies. So I got to learn from some of the best leaders out there and also some not so great leaders. And so I got to see kind of both sides of the story, what's working, what's not. And that kind of sparked, I always had this desire to build something and to create something of my own. I have an entrepreneurial spirit, and since I was like 12 years old, I was building businesses, and I wrote a kids cookbook that I cold called people to sell to in my neighborhood. And so I always knew like I was going to build something one day. And so that day finally came when I was in my corporate marketing career. I decided to kind of take the leap of faith and go start a consulting business. And I didn't really have anything lined up. I didn't have even really a company name or a business plan or clients or anything. But I asked my employer, who was a prominent Fortune company and in the financial services space at the time, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to start my own company. Will you be my first client?" And they said, "Sure." And so that kind of just sparked my my journey into consulting, which has now been 10 years. And I would say, yeah, I love helping businesses. I love helping marketers. And now with my new venture into women entrepreneurs, connecting women entrepreneurs with experts, using my own journey for the 10 years of building my business, I didn't have a lot of women leaders that had done what I'd done. A lot of people stay in corporate and they don't leave to go start their own thing. And so I wanted to, I had to learn a lot of that on my own. I spent a lot of money and time on coaches and programs and mentors and just trying to find people to learn from. And so what I realized through that journey is that women actually do have a very different experience as we're juggling all the hats of motherhood, as we were just talking about right before this call. And it's, I have work and I'm a mom and I'm a spouse and I'm managing my home and all of the hats that we wear. And so, the advice is different actually for women entrepreneurs. So that's what I'm most excited about, is that we all have such an opportunity to make an impact. And I love to just help kind of pull that out of people and get them re-inspired, especially when people are stuck maybe in a job that they don't love. We spend a third of our lives working. And so we should really like what we're doing, if not love what we're doing. And so that's really my drive and motivation, is to help people, just step into their space and make an impact.
One of the key takeaways from what you just said now for me is just that initiative, pushing forward, saying, I can do this, but taking that initiative and just going for it.
Yeah. And knowing that you don't have to do it alone. I think that's literally the impetus behind Impressa AI, which is our new venture, is, being able to connect with the right people and find the right people that can help you just really catapult and shortcut all of that time and energy that you might spend learning the wrong things or learning from the wrong people. That's really kind of our mission.
Exactly. Now, Stacey, back in the mid 2010s, Adobe was under Chief Marketing Officer Ann Lunas. She made a major shift from, focusing on their products to focusing on their customers. And this change not only completely transformed their marketing, it also positioned Adobe as like a leader, in digital media. So it's really a great example of how leadership can align marketing with customer needs and drive business growth. Now, from your perspective, how can brands or agencies apply this kind of leadership to better understand their customers and build a plan of action, that delivers real impact?
Yeah, I mean, I love this example. And even though it was 15 years ago, very few companies have been able to pull this off. A lot of companies say that they're customer focused, but then they don't have the tools or the systems or really the right people in place to be able to do that. So first and foremost, it is a cultural decision within the organization. Do we want to be customer focused or not? This is not a marketing activity. I think that's the mistake that a lot of companies make. They think that this is just the job for the marketing team to go be customer focused, but everybody else is kind of internally, oriented with their own mindset. So number one, it has to come from the executive leadership team that this is a priority, and that listening to customers, pulling customer research, doing customer research, talking to customers, getting customer feedback, that is an important activity that is also budgeted for. Especially in B2B organizations, customer research is typically not budgeted for. In B2C organizations, it is. And that is something, you're not going to go spend multi-million dollars on an ad campaign if you haven't first tested this or put any sort of insights in place around this creative. On the B2B side, the attitude is that, we'll build something, just go ask the sales team what the customers need, and then we'll put something together. So that's first and foremost. It's a cultural sort of executive decision that it needs to be customer focused. The second is that I do think that the owner of this and the person who could drive this the best is the marketing department. It's the chief marketing officer. That's the person that is, somebody has to pull all this together, because what I've learned is that when you say, what is your perspective of the customer, you're going to get 50 different answers, because everybody's looking at it through their own lens. So sales is looking at it from the call they just had this afternoon. The product team is looking at it from a technical call that they had with the engineering team. The executive team is looking at it from maybe an investor perspective, or maybe a conversation they had with another CEO of another company. So everybody has their own perspective, and marketing really needs to be kind of that central owner to pull together, like, what is our view of the customer? What are the motivations of the customer? What are the pain points? What problems are they trying to solve? And how do we fit in? So I would say that's like a big opportunity for marketing to kind of take the leadership stance and being able to do that. And then, as I mentioned, just prioritizing customer research. The best thing right now is, of course, AI is available to help be a central database. I was just watching a Gartner YouTube, and they were talking about the concept of the digital twin, basically creating a digital twin for your customers. And so you could feed it customer data, and we're talking about like insights, maybe website interactions, purchases that they've made. You can also feed it call scripts from customer service or from sales teams, and imagine having like access to all of this in a central place where you could potentially go query it when you're creating marketing campaigns or sales pitch decks or thinking about new innovative products. So I love this idea. Of course, there's a whole security aspect around it, and privacy, and making sure that you have an AI partner like maybe IBM or somebody that's creating that really just for your organization. But I think marketing really, if I kind of zoom out, I think marketing for sure has to be the owner of that and to help sort of pull all of that together.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, if you could, sort of provide us with examples that brands or agencies can actually utilize, which platforms they can go to that can actually try and help them harness this. But as you mentioned, there are privacy issues. So you have to go to a sort of
a credible space that's already, implementing that?
Yeah, I'll tell you. I mean, just what we've done with one of my clients is we're kind of the marketing and the sales team working together on how do we train sales reps to prepare better for calls and to create materials to then call on customers, follow up with customers, sort of that whole entire process. Well, marketing did a lot of foundational research to figure out, well, what's our value proposition and how do we communicate that? And we basically landed on 3 big themes that all customers seem to kind of fall into one of these buckets. So we were able to take all of that foundation, feed it to, I think it was ChatGPT, like we created a little GPT, feed it that, and then feed it the persona work and all the research that we had done for customers. This is not like proprietary. We're not uploading, all of our customer data and customer interactions. This is more just like on the research side. And then we could create like a back and forth conversation that a sales rep can have. Hey, I'm getting ready to meet with this type of customer in this industry. I copied and pasted their about section on the website, and here's some other information. How might I be able to pitch them based on all of the training that we had given it on the value propositions and the product we're selling and all of that. So then it kind of is creating this back and forth conversation to prepare the seller and to get them, smarter about before they make that pitch.
Is there anything else that you'd like to suggest just in terms of like marketing and getting those analysis types?
Yeah, I mean, let's just talk about research for a second. There's kind of 2 different styles of research. One is qualitative research. That's literally talking to people one-on-one, and you're not looking for quantity of people. You're looking for just the quality of those conversations. So these are like 30-minute interviews with maybe your 15 best customers. Now, there's 2 different ways you can do that. Yet in the example you said, like if you're a small business, you may have the CEO calling and setting up these 30-minute interviews. Or option 2, you outsource this and you actually hire somebody that is interviewing on your behalf. Now, I do customer interviews on behalf of my clients. And the one thing I will tell you just between the 2, customers are more open when they are talking to a neutral third party because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. They don't want to get anybody fired. They don't want to say anything to offend the relationship. And so I always just caution people, if you're going to do the interviews yourself, just know that you're probably only getting like a portion of the story because they're guarded. They're a little bit scared because they don't want to tell you exactly how they feel just because you guys have to still work together every single day. And so I've seen this happen over and over again where when they get on the phone with somebody neutral, they're like, let me tell you how it is, right? And they're willing to be more honest. So that's on the qualitative side. The other side is just on the quantitative research, which is basically surveys, right? And we're looking to validate information by the number of people. So this is something organizations can definitely implement at least once a year. With a tool like, SurveyMonkey or something like that, you can create a quick little survey that you're sending out to your customers like on an annual basis just to check in. That's great. You can also there's other tools, and I can't remember the name of the one that we're using off the top of my head, but it's interaction based. So every time they have a call with customer service, or every time they have a sales call, or every time they make a purchase, it's like basically asking for feedback. You see this on websites, right? Can we get your feedback? Yes. Can we get your feedback? Can we get your feedback? Right? So it's annoying as customers, but what they're looking for, yeah. And what those companies are looking for is just like validating like quantity of, if they start seeing a problem and wow, now 90 people are complaining about the problem, like all of a sudden the business has information to then go divert resources to go fix the problem. So it's just different. Yeah.
We often hear about leadership in abstract terms, but I want us to get like a little bit practical. And it would be great if you could share some examples of brands or agencies that you've worked with where focusing on leadership development actually led to real business results.
So I actually lead an 8-week marketing leadership course. Yes. And I have had, I think about 50 students or so come through the program of different backgrounds and profiles of companies. Most of them are kind of in that scale up or mid-market space. And I would say like So it's interesting, right? Because I'm teaching marketing, I'm teaching leadership in marketing. And then the question is, well, how are we going to measure the impact of this? And so one of the things is just like, do they understand the concepts and can they start implementing this stuff right away? For me, that's really important as the teacher, that what I'm teaching can be 100% actionable and that people can start using this stuff immediately. So one of the things that we measure is like the output. Do they know how to build a marketing plan, and do they have they done the work, right? The other piece is just, I watch this, like for me, the one thing that I look at is like the confidence piece. Now, it's you can take like a survey before the course and after the course, right? Like, how confident are you in these following concepts, and how confident are you that, and how you show up? And then you can do it again sort of after the course. I have gotten feedback directly from the students as well as their managers, like, oh my gosh, I'm like sitting up taller. I understand this stuff better. I'm able to participate more confidently in meetings and discussions because I know what I'm doing. I was questioning myself and I didn't want to speak up, but now I'm speaking up in meetings and I'm able to contribute and I'm able to participate, right? Other things that, and other things like, so my husband actually leads HR. So we have this conversation a lot about like, well, what does HR want to see and how do we measure this? So he talks about like productivity measures. So you can look at like, did we shorten the sales cycle, for example, or did we improve like marketing effectiveness, right? Or something like related directly to what is this goal and this challenge that we're having. And then somebody goes through training and development, and all of a sudden those metrics are impacted. And then of course, from an employee standpoint, it's like, does the employee stay there? Does the employee get promoted? Is the employee have really great metrics from their team in terms of employee engagement scores, right? And team scores and team feedback. And it's interesting, the first part of my career was in telecom, where it was like a revolving door. I think I went through like 9 company acquisitions in a very short period of time, 5 years. And every time it was like starting over. So people did not stay in those jobs, or the employee churn rate was really high. You know, it was like you kind of got promoted and you left and then, started all over. And then I went over to work in financial services. And it was interesting because the people within that organization loved the company. It was a great culture, and they had a leadership and development department that was investing, and they had all these great programs investing in their people. And the thing is, which is very interesting, I left that job 10 years ago. Many of the people that I worked with are still there today because it's just a great place to work because they're investing in the people. So the payoff really is like, we have invested in our people, we've gotten smarter business results, we have better productivity and better effectiveness, and our people are staying here and they like it. I mean, ultimately, like that's, what you're measuring, I guess. So for me, like with my program, I look at, do people get promoted? Are they more confident? Are they able to participate in these conversations and really earn their seat at the table and be more credible and influential internally? It's very much like the spider web effect, right? And so it's like one thing impacts another, which impacts another, which impacts another. And all of a sudden you have, all the rungs of the ladder. And if one part of that is broken, the whole thing sort of comes down. And so the job of the leader is to really set that vision and to make sure everybody is collaborating and everybody knows what they're doing and everybody kind of is in their lane, in their, let's call it zone of genius, and they're aligned with their strengths so that they're like, they want to come to work. They want to show up. They're fun to work with. They're collaborative. They're, and that is very different than, and this is just my philosophy when I do job descriptions and when I do interviews. I always ask these questions like, well, what do you want? We can tailor the job, by the way. There are certain aspects of the job that, yes, have to get done, but how it gets done may vary based on the person. And so I always look for cultural fit first, and then are they a learner? Because especially in marketing, like we don't know all the answers and it's constantly changing every single day of our lives. And so it's somebody that has that kind of learning mindset, and it's we are not given a playbook. You're not given, here's the 25 things that you're going to do every single day on repeat. No, every day is different. And so I think just having those conversations, I've been able to just, find roles for people and build roles for people and get them, growing and learning and excited, just kind of little by little, like working toward their goals that they have for themselves. And so, so I think that's just, and like I said, I've had some really great examples working for very large companies where this works very well. And then I've seen it done poorly as well, where there's the wrong leader in place and just sort of spreading, whatever their philosophy is, right? And all of a sudden it's like toxic because it's just not healthy. And then it's like, some people recognize that and others don't. For me, I always kind of recognize that and I got out of there. I mean, we're talking within months. And other people are like, I've been staying here for years and years. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way. It's like, I was so sensitive to that I had to flee.
I'm actually very interested in getting your perspective on a specific scenario. Back in the early days of HubSpot, Brian Halligan, one of its founders, he was deeply involved in the company's day-to-day operations. But now as HubSpot grew, he realized something had to change. So instead of just managing tasks, he then started leading with vision. So he was shifting his focus to inspiring and to guiding his team towards a larger purpose. And this transformation didn't just shape, HubSpot's culture. It actually turned the company itself into a major player in the marketing software space. So from your perspective, how does this kind of shift from managing to leading with vision transform a marketing team's culture?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I love this example, and I'm actually seeing it play out right now within my own space. And I'll just give you like a little bit of my background. So when I was working in corporate marketing, I had a team and I was always leading a team and teaching the team. And I loved like being able to inspire the team and grow the team. And then I left to go become a consultant, and I was basically by myself. And so all of a sudden I'm wearing all the hats and juggling all the things. And I missed really that, the leading aspect of this. Well, now as I'm building Impressa, we are very much leading with vision on that one. And the difference is, I said in the beginning, like start with the why. People buy into the why. And we are definitely seeing that with Impressa, because we're saying we want to help more women succeed in business. We want to help more women succeed in their careers. We want to help more women build their empires and make the impact that they were born to make. And yet there's all these barriers facing women. And how do we help kind of break down those barriers? And people buy into that vision because they're like, yeah, that women are, we're not getting paid fairly, and we always give away all of our advice for free. And we need different advice, and we do things differently than men. And so we have men and women who are like, we want to help. We want to, happier women means happier households, and happier households means happier communities, right? And a happier world. And so we want to buy into that vision. And so we have people that are coming and offering their help and volunteering, and they're like, we just want to plug in. And we're definitely like, and what I'm doing is very much what Brian is doing here, like taking a step back. Like, I don't have to do it all. We are having people I'm like, what is your strength? What is your passion? Okay, we need help there. And what is your strength and what is your passion? Okay, how can you help? And that is like such a shift in how to lead. Because it's not micromanaging it. It's not overly, being prescriptive. And when you kind of take a step back and let people play into their own strengths, they're going to give you something so much better than whatever you thought. Your job really as the leader is to like set the vision and just like, that's where we're going. Just point there, that's where we're going. Does everybody agree we're going there? And then let the people like add their expertise. And it's just been fascinating for me to watch just how much better everything is when you get the right people and that they're passionate and excited about it and just wanting to showcase their own strengths versus, here's the 5 things that you need to do, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to do it. And because people can't get passionate or excited about that. And I think especially like I think too, giving people little milestones where It's you're setting, here's what we're going to do. you come back to me with 3 ideas and let's talk through the 3 ideas. Okay, let's go with option 2. We like option 2. Okay, next. Now go figure out how we're going to build out option 2, right? And sort of giving little milestones until you feel comfortable like collaborating and working with each other. And eventually it's like, it works really well. But I think a key word that you mentioned there is trust. And what does that mean? It means we have to take time to actually build those relationships and build trust, right? You can't go into somebody and say, you should trust me, right? And like all of a sudden we're going to trust each other. No, it takes time, right? And it takes working with each other and being put in challenging situations together to see like how you react versus how I react and how we have each other's backs and that kind of thing to start building that trustworthy environment. And I think we live in this extremely fast pace, and especially depending on certain industries where it's like, get the results. I don't care. Get the results. They're not taking time to build trust with their employees, and they're definitely not taking time to build trust with their customers. And so then you end up with like, great, the PE firm is happy because they're making a whole bunch of money, but it's not sustainable. And all the employees are burnt out and they want to quit. And all the customers, are giving feedback and nobody's listening and the product's not getting better. So it's so short-sighted to me. And I think some companies have figured this out. Most have not. And we can go into a whole bunch of other reasons about why, but
what would you say are the 3 most significant barriers that actually hold marketing leaders back from breaking through the ceiling? And then how can they turn these challenges into opportunities for growth?
Yeah. So I would say, I think over the past probably 15, 20 years, marketing has shifted to becoming a strategic part of the business to becoming more like tech operations and execution. And marketing now is expected to go be a tech expert. We're implementing AI, marketing, go figure out how you're going to implement AI all over your marketing department. The problem with that is that marketing has lost sight of what the primary job is, which is to be the voice of the customer internally. And because they're not connected to the customer anymore, they have lost their seat at the table. So I would say that's the biggest challenge right now, is just getting that seat back at the table. Because if you're just out there executing and you're only seen as sort of the execution department, you cannot influence the business strategy. So number one, to get that seat at the table is to go back to the beginning of our conversation, which is all about customer focus and really taking the ownership for that. And when you start understanding the customers and you're looking at customer data and you're doing customer research and you're reading and reviewing what is happening in the customer's world and in the customer's industries, and then you show up with ideas, hey, I'm seeing this trend is happening in this industry that we serve our customers in manufacturing. Here's what's happening in manufacturing. I think we have an answer to this. We should be taking advantage of it. Then all of a sudden people will start listening. And I've seen this happen firsthand because, like I said, I do customer research primarily, interestingly, that is mostly commissioned not by marketing. It's commissioned by either the head of operations or the head of the business unit or the head of sales, because they're frustrated. They're saying, I don't think we know enough about our customers. Marketing isn't doing any research. I'm begging them to do research. They're not doing it. And so I would say number one is like, you've got to get that seat back at the table, and you have to do it sort of through that customer focus and customer lens. The other piece is that we have invented our own problem with all of this data and attribution and measuring. And how does marketing prove ROI? And I see this firsthand because I just was looking at some dashboard the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, do not show this. Do not show this to anybody. This is like an internal marketing dashboard that maybe you want to teach your marketing team about. But the fact that you're sharing this with executives, you're now inviting everybody else's opinions into the fold. And especially like at a board level conversation, we're talking about, let's review all these analytics that are happening with our pay-per-click campaign and our SEO campaign and all of our Google ads and our Facebook ads and. So I would say no on that. We got to elevate the conversation. And the way to do that is to go back to understanding the customer lifecycle and where marketing fits in. So the customer goes through becoming we are taking them from being a stranger to becoming a loyal advocate. And what are the steps and journey that the customer has to go through. That's number one, is kind of just outlining that. Number two then is to say, well, what marketing activity do we do along each part of that journey? What are we doing to turn strangers into prospects? What are we doing to turn prospects into customers? What are we doing to turn customers into repeat customers and upsell and cross-sell? What are we doing to then turn those to get them to renew, and then finally get them to refer business to us and be loyal advocates on our behalf? Each one of those different stages require different marketing activities. And so how we communicate that and how we measure that back into the executive team. The executive team, by the way, understands the customer life cycle. They all get that. They're like, yeah, that's what we want. That's, finally. And when I see marketers come in with, they're not talking about the customer life cycle. They're not talking about goals or objective. They're just coming in with a whole bunch of metrics and attributions and data that they're pulling together. It's just, we're just doing ourselves a whole disservice. And we're inviting questions and frankly, like the CFO to run marketing. So I would say that's definitely number two. And then number three is investing in yourself, investing in the team to learn, because as we just talked about, it is constantly changing, this field. And if you are expecting your manager to come and knock on your door and say, here, we think this is a course you should take, or this is a program you should go through, or this is an event you should go to, you're missing the opportunity. That's what I would say is, like, you have to take ownership for your own leadership and growth. Do not wait for somebody to come. And I just saw a post about this. It's like investing in yourself is a mindset. And some people are like, well, fine. I don't want to invest in myself. I'll spend a whole bunch of money on, we're like the Christmas season. I'll spend a whole bunch of money on gifts for other people. But when it comes to myself, I would never spend $500 to take a course, or I would never, buy a book for $30. Like, really? So it's, investing in yourself really is a mindset. And the other piece I would say is, like, I did a whole bunch of research on the main competencies required to be a great marketing team. And there was 5 of them. I'll just quickly go through them. It spells the acronym VALUE, because we believe that the job of a marketer is to create value. And so it's visionary, activator, learner, usefulness, and evaluator. And the L for learner, we asked the question, we did a whole bunch of research with different leaders in different organizations. And we said, what's the number one barrier you think that marketers are having to being like a learner? Number one was time. They're not making the time to do it. And then number 2 is that they're not owning their own growth. They're not asking. Many organizations we talked to said, we have a budget for training. And I could tell you there's like one person on the team that's ever come and asked to use that budget. So my thing is, like, why? Why aren't we asking? So what's the worst that your manager can say? No, that's too expensive. No, we don't have the budget. But what if they're willing to pay 50% and you pay the other 50%? Right? I mean, what if they might pay 100%? They might pay 50%. You might even get them to be able to pay 25%. It's like, so it's just, we have to shift our mindset around like that learning and growth piece, I think. So those would be my 3 off the top of my head.
Stacey, leadership development, it's often viewed as an investment that impacts culture, retention, strategic growth. It also impacts efficiency as well. And you were chatting about ROI, and we are also discussing, the 3 that you mentioned earlier, just in terms of like, putting an investment into self. But now, how can brands and agencies actually connect the leadership training that you mentioned, like directly to tangible ROI? How would that play out? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was going back to some of the things like, how do you measure training, right? And whether or not it's worth it. And so it's looking at things like your employee engagement scores. It's looking at things like employee retention rates. Are people staying? It's looking at promotions. Are you getting promotion? Are you promoting people on your team? Like all of those really, how it connects back to ROI is that replacing employees is expensive. And if you have to constantly replace your employees because they're not the right fit, or because you're not doing the training and they don't have the skills, like you're literally wasting so much time and effort and energy of just like reliving that cycle over and over and over, that it's like, look, we're going to invest and we want you to stay there, let's say 3 years. And, here's what's going to happen at this 3-year mark. And the thing is, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if you start investing in your employees, then they want to stay there and do better work, right? And then the ladder just sort of keeps going. You stop investing and they're looking for jobs all day. Or maybe they already have a side gig or 3 side gigs, right? It's like, because they're like, you're not loyal to me, why should I be loyal to you? And so it's like with this program that I lead, this 8-week marketing leadership program, I've had most of the people that go through it, I say, I want your company to pay for this. I want your company to invest in you to go through this program, you and your team. If you have to pay out of pocket, there's been a couple people that are more like fractional CMOs or consultants, who are their own boss and their own company. So they're paying for themselves to go through the program. But for the most part, I want the marketing leader to get their company to sign off on it, because it is an investment. The company 100% benefits from them learning these skills. And the ROI in that situation is like, they could hire me for 10x the cost, or I could teach their people how to do it, right, for a fraction of that. And now it's a skill that they have, and they can repeat that every single year. So it makes a lot of sense. I think just companies have to start looking at that, as an investment of their people, and that it does pay off.
Definitely. Do you have any like real world examples that you can show, just to show us that it's like worth the time, the energy, and the resources? Anything to share?
I'll think of some stories like from my course. One is, actually I've had 3 people that have gone through the program and got promoted afterwards. So that was like a massive, like their companies invested in it because they were like, they're a high performer. I want to invest in them. They're not ready yet, but I want to get them ready to that next level. So they went through the program and then they got promoted. So that to me is like the biggest, win. It's like, did it work? Yeah, they got promoted and they're still there, right? Great. There was 2 other people who were, this is interesting, making the switch from sales into marketing. And so they went through the program because they were like, I never really learned marketing. I always had to work with marketing, but I know enough to be dangerous, but I don't feel I definitely don't feel confident to go have a marketing conversation. So they went through the program and then ended up transitioning into a marketing role. And so one of them now leads marketing and sales. So she elevated her role to cover both marketing and sales. And the other one made a full switch into a marketing role. And then there's another student that was kind of at this crossroads in her career. And she said, again, like, what am I ultimately helping people with? I hear from a lot, and especially women. I just don't feel very confident. Like I've been in this field for a long time, but when you've been in marketing for a long time, what is that? It's the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you start and you're like, I know everything. And then you go in your role for a long time and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much I have no idea about. And then you eventually start learning more. And then you're like, okay, actually, I do know. And so I meet with a lot of people kind of like 10 years into their career, and they're kind of like, oh my gosh, I've now been doing this for 10 years and I've been working with very opinionated salespeople, very opinionated finance people, very opinionated CEOs, very opinionated product people. And that like wears you down after a while, because you start questioning your own self and you're like, do I actually know what I'm doing? Like everybody has an opinion. And then it's like, my neighbor's kid just started a TikTok page and he has 1 million followers. We need to start a TikTok page. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about TikTok. Yes. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about TikTok. I only have like 50 followers. Like maybe this kid does know more than me. Right. And so anyways, I think after a while, you just start kind of questioning yourself. So one thing that I love after people go through this program is like, oh my gosh, I feel more confident. I can like literally have a conversation with the executive team and with my peers and with my stakeholders and know that I'm doing the right things, and know that there's frameworks for this, and know that even though they might have an opinion, now I know how to deal with them. And it's just an opinion. And I don't have to like listen to their opinion, and I certainly don't have to go execute their opinion. And so I basically teach sort of that whole process of how to do that. And I love, people that ultimately they say I have more confidence, I could participate in those conversations. And many of them either like elevate their role or they leave their role and they get a better role. So, I mean, those are like just some examples just from students that have gone through it.
I mean, I'm absolutely loving to hear this. And, just that feeling for yourself as the person who's been, assisting them through this and taking them through the program, to get that kind of feedback, when all is said and done, I think it's absolutely wonderful. It's more, it means more to you and it's more of value than the money you're getting paid. I mean, because I can hear you're passionate about what you do. Yeah, yes. Definitely.
Yeah, and that's the only reason I put it together. Yeah. Moving from consulting where I could only work with a handful of customers for the whole year, then I was like, how can I just help more people? Because I just see this trend happening where it's like marketing is execution. Don't pull the marketing team in yet. We're not ready to execute. And I'm like, no, let's drag them back to the strategic leadership table. Like I want more of that. So
I think I just want to quickly touch on your course itself. Do you have like a bit of a framework as to what it is that you focus on? I'm sure you've got like a couple of steps in that. If you can just maybe give like an example of one and then go into a bit of a brief explanation on that. Yeah.
It's 8 modules and it's centered around my framework that is from my book called Look Inside, The Real Reason You're Not Winning the Marketing Game. And it's basically the A3 framework. So there's 3 A's. The first is alignment. The second is accountability. And the third is acceleration. So everybody wants to start with accelerate. Let's just go. Let's just start executing. And it's like, no, the reason that your marketing plan doesn't work or that you don't necessarily have the buy-in is because you skipped those first 2 steps. So we start with alignment, which is understanding what do our customers want, what's happening sort of in the competitive landscape, and then what are our company goals? And how do we if you do not understand those 3 things, then you can't move on to the next step because you're just creating tactics. So we spend a lot of time and I teach basically frameworks and tools and lessons and examples on here's how to gather customer intel, here's how to gather competitor and market intel, and then here's how to gather internal company intel, which, by the way, most marketing people never learn because, and this is sort of side story, salespeople come into a new organization and they get training. They get training on who we're selling to, what we're selling, how to sell it. Marketers come in and it's like, okay, go ahead and start updating our social media and send out some email campaigns. We get no training. We have no idea what we sell. We have no idea who we're selling it to, right? And so spending time to really understand the company, how does the company make money? Where is the company making money? What are those primary segments and how are we going to get revenue and what else is the company measuring? That's the first sort of alignment bucket. The accountability bucket then is how do you build your team to execute? How do you build a plan and focus on those right tactics? I show that customer life cycle that we were just talking about. How do you align marketing activity to the customer life cycle so that you can present that back and get the collaboration, the buy-in, and the feedback that you need to ultimately build your dashboard and be able to communicate internally. Here's what the marketing team is doing. Here's what the marketing team is not doing. And be very clear all the time sort of about that accountability piece. And then the third A is acceleration, which are like these little nuances that marketers need to make to accelerate their plan. The first is value proposition. I think 83% of marketers never learn how to build a value proposition, and yet we are responsible for understanding value and understanding how to communicate value within the whole sort of marketing framework. So I teach how to build the value proposition framework and then how to align around those value themes that your customers want. And then the second is a content strategy that is aligned to both the value themes that customers care about and the customer lifecycle. And then the last sort of lesson is I teach a framework to do like a marketing audit for yourself and how to do this. Because I get called in, and I don't like this, but I get called into organizations by the CEO or the COO, and they say, "Can you evaluate the marketing team? I don't think they know what they're doing." And I sit down and I talk to the marketing team. They're like, oh my gosh, everything's great. I'm like, how would you rate yourself? Oh, 95%, probably 95%. Meanwhile, the CEO is rating them 65%. And so it's like, it makes me cringe when I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much misalignment and you guys are blindsided. You actually don't know that you're being evaluated in this way. And so I teach how to do their own evaluation, their own audit, so that they never end up in that situation where they're blindsided by the CEO. I don't like that. So I'm like, at minimum, run this thing once a year, run an audit once a year on your department, and just get the insights, because people will tell you, and by the way, they'll tell you this all in the audit process that I go through. It's like a survey and some interviews and things like that. And you'll know exactly what their opinions and their perceptions are of the marketing team. And if you don't, and your job then over the next year is to start working on changing those perceptions, because that is the chatter that's happening internally. That's why you're not invited to the strategic meetings. That's why why your department's being questioned. That's why you're not getting the budget that you need. And so I like to teach that, just because I want marketers to feel empowered.
Well, so it's interesting. I mean, so some of the things that you're discussing now, which you do through your program, actually touches on my next question. Talking about, how does focusing on what truly matters, whether it's customer value, innovation, or alignment, actually help marketing leaders stay on track and fuel sustainable growth? Because, we were chatting about it earlier. Sustainable growth is what's important at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think part of the challenge that I, again, think marketing can help own is focus. I see a lot of companies with, bright, shiny object syndrome, and they're like just chasing all the different bright, shiny objects. And somebody has to be the one that's reining it in. That's like, no, don't focus over there. Remember, our goal is this. We all agreed on this. We agreed what the plan was. We agreed what the big levers were. Like, this is what we're doing. We have to execute our plan. And I just had this conversation with my team. I'm a fractional CMO for a company, and I had this conversation about consistency. And I said, it's going to get very boring as the marketing department, because part of our job is to make sure that the message is consistent. Our activities are consistent. We're focusing the entire organization. And it can be really exciting to be like, let's go run this campaign, and let's go do this, and let's go do this event, and let's all the bright, shiny objects. But I said, there's a power in consistency, and some consumer brands, obviously I figured this out. The ones that are there year after year after year, they have the same tagline. They have the same look and feel. They're not changing that every single year. And we do not have to either. And so because we're bored with it. Right. And so I think that's a big thing, is just like, the key there is focus and consistency, and really being like the drumbeat of consistency. Does that mean that you can't be creative? No, you could definitely be creative, but you got to have like your, guardrails in place that says, this is what consistency looks like, and then let's be creative within that space.
Yeah. Amazing. So Stacey, I've got my final question for you. When businesses are looking to select a marketing agency partner, what are the top 4 factors they absolutely must consider to ensure that they are choosing the right fit?
Yeah, I don't know if I have four whole factors, but I'll give you a couple.
As many as you can follow.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the first is that, I have worked with a lot of really great creative agencies. I've been lucky. I worked at AT&T. That was one of my first jobs. We worked with some of the top agencies in New York and LA at the time. And I got to see like what we were investing in with those was the creativity. You're investing in like the process and the people that just really think creatively and can put some like high quality production together. On the B2B side, I think a lot of organizations are not there yet in terms of like investing in creative. They don't really even understand that. They're investing in like how can we make another sale, little short-term kind of areas of focus versus like long-term brand building. But I would say like when I think of agencies, what I see in that space is you kind of have like, there's a lot of agencies that claim to be like a jack of all trades. And one of the factors I look at is like, how did they start? What is the agency's actual expertise? Many of them, for example, are started as PR firms, and now all of a sudden they're marketing firms and they're doing all these marketing things. And I haven't had a great experience working with an agency that has like jack of all trades, because at the core, they have some root. That's what they're founded in. That's what their primary area of skill set and expertise is. And so I love, like I was saying earlier, I love to play to people's strengths. So I go back to like agencies and I'm like, what is your real strength? Yes, you can do all these little ancillary things, but like, what's the one thing that you're really actually good at? Why did you actually start your agency? Let's do that. Let's do that together, because I know they're going to be passionate about it, and I know that that's where you're going to get the best work. The other is like, depending on the industry that you're in, the other piece I like to look at is like, do they have any sort of industry expertise? It's actually, an agency we're working with right now, they put somebody on the account who does not understand B2B, and he's a B2C guy. And it's been really frustrating as the client, because I'm like, we're spending a lot of money with the agency, and yet I feel like all we're doing is teaching this person over and over, like, what's the difference, why this consumer thing is not going to work in business, and how to sell business versus consumer. And so I would say, like, looking at sort of the industry expertise, or looking at what their area of, do they have any sort of experience in what it is that you actually sell, what industry you're working in, and what you're selling and who you're selling to, because there is a learning curve with that. And so if you could find a partner that's like, oh, we sell to B2B in the telecom space, oh my gosh, amazing. Because now you don't have to have this, 6-month, 12-month onboarding learning curve process, because they've already been working in the space. They understand it. So, so that's number 2. And then, number 3, and I have never really been able to crack the code on this. And in fact, this is one of the key reasons that I started my consulting business, is that I always wished I had a partner on the agency side that truly understood what it was like to be an internal corporate marketer. The hardest part about marketing as a corporate marketer is not coming up with a creative campaign idea. It's actually getting the collaboration and the buy-in from all the other people internally, the product team, the sales team, the executive team, all the buy-in that you need. And I always, there's very few like agencies, I think, that some, that hire people from corporate that really understand the inner workings of a corporate, who can make recommendations and suggestions like, hey, you know what, let's do a reveal meeting, invite the sales guy, invite the product guy, invite this, we're going to do a big reveal of this marketing campaign collectively, and we're going to spearhead this process, and we'll get the feedback for you in this forum, because we know that ultimately the agency wins and the marketing team wins when everybody is aligned. So that would be like icing on the top, I guess, is for agencies that have, people that understand sort of the inner workings of corporate, because it is different, and it can be very frustrating as an internal sort of marketer to like have to constantly, go back to that internal team of stakeholders. So those would be my 3, I guess.
Thank you, Stacey. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was so inspiring to chat with you. I love what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing more success from you in the future. And thank you so much for your time that you've given us here at DesignRush.
Yes, thank you so much. And yeah, I would invite anybody to follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm active on that platform.
Lovely stuff. Thank you so much, Stacey.
Curious about what top brands look for when choosing an agency? Tune in to our latest episodes, where we reveal the decision-making secrets of leading brands. Subscribe to the DesignRush Podcast and stay ahead of the competition.